What is up, you awesome kisters? It's CistReactZ, guys. Today we're reacting to Game Theory FNAF. The missing key is phone guy. You know, at this point, I think we're just making game theories at this point. How can the man who got mauled to pieces even be a plot element at this point? It's not 2016 anymore where we thought he was William Afton. Hit that like button, subscribe to the Game Theorists, and comment down below. Let's see what they got.
We've all been wrong about FNAF 1. Since its release, its place in the timeline has remained an unconfirmed...
Actually, you know what? He could have some significance, because I think there was a book that recently came out with him in it, and apparently some lore drops. I don't know.
Mystery. But now we have the week before.
Yeah, the week that's what I'm talking about. I just haven't read it yet.
Will it solve this 10-year-old mystery, or is it going to leave the timeline even more broken? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that reads the FNAF book so you don't have
to.
Like, seriously, why are there 25 of these things?
There's only 25?
I feel about the mere
I thought there was more.
of these things, Scott is still pumping them out, and now we've got a new series of interactive novels starting officially with the week before. For those of you who don't know,
Pit has an interactive novel?
FNAF's
How does that work?
distinct version of a choose-your-own adventure book. They can't legally call it that because it's trademarked. Don't worry about it. In this book, we take on the role of Ralph.
How are the words "choose your adventure" trademarked?
Shift the week before FNAF 1. The same security
That's some thirsty
guard
shit.
that we hear during each night of FNAF 1.
Hello. I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night.
That's right. Ralph is Phone Guy. Nice to finally put a name to a voice.
Okay. He does sound like a Ralph.
The story plays out. Some paths will take you through the pizzeria that we know so well at this point. Others will...
Fear, you're tasting fear. As soon as you put the Freddy head on, you want to tear it off again, but you don't dare because through its eye holes you spot Foxy standing in the doorway. He stalks you and stops, only inches from your Freddy face. He leans forward into your eyes. He sees you. He screams and you black out. Damn, he knocked you out so fast.
Will offer you new storylines, and others will land you exactly where Phone Guy ends up during the night 4 call of FNAF 1.
It's gotta be a messed up way to die.
This book has caused quite a stir in the FNAF community. Firstly because, well, it's actually a pretty good book. The interactive element really gamifies the whole reading experience and builds the anticipation of where it's going. But the real reason it's become such a hot button topic is because it...
Ain't these like... I've never played it before, but ain't these like choose your own adventure books like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that? Maybe that's also why people really like them.
Provides us with answers to some of our...
I don't know how Dungeons and Dragons work, but I think it works similarly to this book.
Not just who Phone Guy is, but who did the bite of 87, with the employees' new tactics of flashing their lights to stop the animatronic and Phone Guy's...
Who did the bite of 87?
Questions about this franchise. Not just who Phone Guy is, but who did the bite of 87.
You sigh and slip into a pocket to discard it later. People just leave their trash wherever they feel like it. This wouldn't have happened in the old days when working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Was a badge of honor. The franchise had truly fallen in hard times thanks to those pernicious rumors about missing kids and lingering bad press from the bite of 87.
87, with the employees' new tactics.
I thought I was gonna say like
to stop the animatronic and
who
Phone
did
Guy's insistence that the animatronic...
It was cool that they mentioned it.
A kid, with the emphasis on kid. All signs point towards it being Foxy. How many spirits are inside of Golden Freddy?
I believe it.
Well, according to the Sixth Night, Ralph is overwhelmed by a noise of "It's me" when he's touched by Golden Freddy. But underneath that noise is a different voice speaking in full sentences.
Oh, hell no.
Two spirits. Who those spirits are and how it works are theories for another day. But it's been so exciting to finally feel like we're getting some answers to questions we've had since that very first game.
Actually, might be two people in Golden Freddy? That's gotta be fucked up.
And many other theories
I used to have two kids in one suit.
What year does FNAF 1 take place? This book is literally set the week before FNAF 1, so if anything was going to give us the answer, it would be this. Or so we thought. In true FNAF fashion, while offering answers to some questions, this book is cryptic about others. But as I went back through the book and the evidence surrounding FNAF 1's date, I noticed something. We've been looking at this entirely wrong. There's a detail that's been hanging over us for a whole
Why turn the year upside down?
A detail that changes not just when in the timeline FNAF 1's pizzeria existed, but the entire timeline as we know it. Grab your camera viewing tablets, friends, because we gotta go back to the original Freddy's for one more night to figure out when FNAF 1 really takes place.
Here we go.
Hello? I'm wanting to record a message for you to get settled into your first night. Welcome to Lumen X FNAF 2024.
Lumen X FNAF?
Fun in style.
Is
come
that a
alive,
sponsorship?
and I can't read the
1993
There
has
we go.
basically been the de facto date.
Make sure you guys check out their whole Lumen thing as per. Oh, shit. There we go. As per my rules, when I skip a sponsorship in a video, I always show it because I feel bad. All right, here we go.
FNAF 1. Ever since Matt's very first FNAF episode,
So 1993?
he used the amount of money earned in the week and compared it with the minimum wages throughout the years, which landed him somewhere in the early 90s. Combine that with the fact that most weekly employees are paid on Fridays, with the date we get paid in FNAF 1 being November 12th, and you find the only year that fits is 1993. We almost got confirmation of this date too, thanks to some leaked Faz facts from FNAF AR, saying things like Fazbear's Twisted Pizza recipe was voted most yummy
Twisted?
by 6 out of 10 children in every survey from 1988 to 1993. But
Oh,
we
snap.
were later told by Illumix, the company that made the game, not to use this cut content for lore purposes. These might have been cut because Scott just likes to be cryptic, or it could be because the date was wrong. Either way, it did sow the seeds of doubt within the community about the legitimacy of 1993 as our FNAF 1 year. Since then, a couple
It's so weird how we still have to be confused after someone was told not to use it. Like, why didn't they just say it? Is the year wrong? Is it inconsistent? Like, I'm assuming probably because they didn't tell them the reason. It's probably got something to do with the story.
of other dates have been thrown around, but despite all of the theorizing, we've never had something that felt truly solid, which was where we all hoped the week before would come in and save the day. And at first, it seemed like it was doing just that. Throughout the book, Ralph not only records the phone calls that we get to hear during the first game, but he also listens to his old recordings that, according to him, are from very long ago. Quote, "It's strange to listen to a recording of yourself, especially one from so long ago. If you remember correctly, your daughter had just been born." I know, it is strange listening to a recording of yourself. Welcome to my life, mate. At the very start of this story, we learned that Ralph's daughter, Capella, is 11 years old. And so, if this recording was made around when she was born, and that initial recording
Phone guy got
says it's from Freddy
kids?
Fazbear's Pizza, not Fredbear's Family Diner, then the earliest this game could take place is 11 years after Freddy's opened in 1983, making the year 1994. Now, there's always a chance that he recorded the calls a year or so before the opening, or he simply rounded up the year. The phrase "just been born" could mean sometime between Capella literally being born and being 12 to 24 months old, which would allow for 1993 to still fit the bill here. That is, if it wasn't for something YouTuber The Unwithered Truth pointed out. They also did a whole video trying to figure out the year of FNAF 1, but they found an interesting detail. The page where we're told Ralph recorded these phone guy messages around when his daughter was born has two major faults. The first is that to get to this page, it requires some really odd pathway choices. By getting through to the 6th night on your first playthrough, you unlock a mobile phone which the book calls the bonus item. You then need to restart the book with the bonus item in your inventory. At various points, the book offers you a chance to use the bonus item, and you're encouraged to do so whenever this option is presented, because that leads to the canon FNAF 1 phone calls being recorded. However, to get to the page about when your daughter was born, you actually have to reject recording the night 1 phone call. On this new path, you instead need to call the voicemail service. But to do that, you need a code. This code is on the mobile phone's speed dial, but you would only know that if you had taken the previous prompt and used the bonus item to record the night 1 phone call, skipping this voicemail section entirely. Plus, it doesn't use the typical bonus item prompt. It just says, if you have the 4-digit code. Without the bonus item, you'd never know what this code is. But if you have the bonus item, you'd have likely skipped this page and recorded the night 1 phone call. Yes, it is technically possible to do things this way, but it flies in the face of logic for the reader. Of course, you could just dismiss this as a small mistake. But
Due to
then once
FNAF
you
for
do get to
a
the
tree
page about
like
your
that
daughter's
to be
age, we
made on
find
how to
another
progress.
problem. It
What the
contains
hell?
information that directly contradicts other information in the book. On this page, it tells you you've never brought Capella here, as in where you work, Freddy Fazbear's. Yet later on in the book, it says she's never gotten over the time you brought her to work to meet the animatronics when she was 7. Both of these things cannot be true. Either she's been to Freddy's or she hasn't. And so it makes it really difficult to lean on Capella's age as a defining piece of evidence to settle this debate. Fortunately, there are a few other clues to help us out. Throughout the book,
1989.
it becomes clear that Ralph has a bit of an affinity for modern pop culture, specifically movies and TV shows. On page 147, he references The Goonies. On page 194, he punches in the code 1234, and when it's wrong, says that would be a combination an idiot would have on their luggage.
Spaceballs.
The same line from the movie Spaceballs. When fighting against the animatronics, Ralph's daughter yells, "Try holy water, death breath," which comes from the movie The Lost Boys. This thing is full of references like this, and they're mostly from the 1980s. The Goonies was first released in 1985, Spaceballs was released in 1987, and The Lost Boys was also released in 1987. However, there is one year that comes up more commonly. On page 157, Ralph says how Bruce Willis makes crawling through vents look easy, referencing Die Hard from 1989. On page 176, he mentions watching Lethal Weapon movies.
Yeah, 87, there we go again.
Just the original, with the sequel coming out in 1989. He even references an episode of Star Trek on page 8, Who Watches the Watcher, an episode that was released in 1989. And finally, he mentions his daughter playing a Sega Genesis console, which was released in, you guessed it, 1989. With all of these references to the same date, it really feels like the emphasis is on this year, especially given that none of these references come
I
from
said
media
87.
that goes beyond November
When there was 89, that would have just
the month
appeared.
which we know FNAF 1 takes place thanks to the paycheck. And if you remove the broken page about recording the phone calls when Ralph's daughter was born, you no longer need to worry about Freddy's being around 11 years prior, which makes 1989 feel like a really solid candidate, at least at first. As I said, there are a bunch of references in this book, but there's only one that is mentioned twice: time to make the donuts. This is the
Time to make the
catchphrase of
donuts?
Fred the Baker, a character from a bunch of Dunkin' Donuts commercials introduced in 1981. That feels pretty in line with what we've already established. It's just
The commercial
another
looks like a
80s
fever
reference.
dream,
Except
dude.
Fred the Baker and his catchphrase extended beyond the 1980s. The last commercial with Fred saying his iconic line was 1997.
Time to make the
Oh,
coffee,
shit.
time to make the donuts.
So while yes, the catchphrase did exist in the 80s, this means we can't rule out the possibility that it takes place sometime in the 90s. And to top it off, there's one other reference that throws a spanner into the 1989 idea.
Kingdom
Disney.
Hearts?
No, I'm not kidding. Disney is canon in the FNAF universe. People thought we were crazy for comparing their mascot designs to FNAF in our Ultimate Timeline, but here we are. Quote, "You smile, thinking back on better times. For a while, you'd have said that Freddy Fazbear's
I don't know, I
Pizza
just
was
realized the
happiest
Kingdom
place
Hearts
on Earth. If
scene
you
was
weren't
in
worried
a
about
Five Nights at
infringing
Freddy's
on a
video. What the
trademark.
hell?
The happiest place on Earth is, of course, the slogan for Disneyland, which opened in 1955. However, the key detail in that line isn't the slogan, but the kind of lawsuit Ralph is afraid of: trademark infringement. We spoke about trademarks in our recent Poppy Playtime episode, but the basic gist is that a person or business can trademark a phrase to stop others using it to sell their own products. In this case, it would be to stop other parks or franchises calling themselves the happiest place on Earth, as that could lead to visitors thinking they were visiting an official Disney attraction when actually they were going to a Murder Bear pizzeria. To get a trademark, you have to apply for it, making it an official legal thing that you own.
Wonder how much
despite
that shit
being around since
costs.
1955, Disney didn't actually register for that trademark until 1998. For Ralph to be afraid of trademark infringement, this book, and therefore FNAF 1, has to take place after the trademark was filed in... This isn't a totally out there date for FNAF 1 either. I know Rye Toast has liked the idea of FNAF 1 being in 1998 for some time, mainly due to the date given to us on the FNAF paychecks. In FNAF 1, we're paid on November 12th, and in FNAF 2, we're also paid on November 12th. Only this time, we know the year, 1987. That isn't a Friday as we initially discussed, but a Thursday, implying Fazbear typically breaks the mold and pays on Thursdays. And another year with November 12th on a Thursday is, as you might expect at this point, 1998. This date would also allow for Capellia's age to work if you wanted to include that detail, as 11 years prior is 1987, the same year as the grand reopening of Freddy's in FNAF 2. Finally, it also works with a line that has bugged us theorists for years. During night 1 of FNAF 1, Ralph's phone call mentions that these characters were
Like, we're just calling him
forced
Ralph
to
now.
sing those same stupid songs for 20 years. 20 years prior to 1998 would have been 1978. Since Help Wanted 2, we have been aware that the franchise has existed since the 1970s, and in The Secret of the Mimic teaser, we saw the date 1979 pop up, very close to that 20 years prior.
Very
And
close.
just like it's possible he was rounding years for the phrase just been born, it's not too much of a stretch to believe he rounded up to 20 years when it was actually a year less, and it was 1979. So is that it? Is 1998 the year of FNAF 1? Honestly, I thought so for a pretty decent chunk of time, but as I was going
Kind of
back
would make
through all the
sense.
evidence, something struck me. The quote from Ralph about singing those songs for 20 years, it's not the full quote. We often spend a lot of time focusing on the 20 years part because that feels like a definitive amount that we can fit into whatever timeline we come up with. But the full line gives us an extra detail about exactly what he's referring to.
If I were forced to sing those same stupid songs for 20 years and I never got a bath, I'd probably be a bit irritable at night too.
Did you catch it? Ralph mentions them never being washed in those 20 years.
Never got
you
a
can't
bath.
wash a character. It's just a fictional concept, which means this line has to be referring to the animatronics themselves. In the book, he also states that he was so happy that they restored Freddy and the gang to their vintage designs. These aren't new animatronics for this reopened location. These are old animatronics that have been restored. The same
withered
ones
suits.
that have been around for 20 years. His joke about not getting a bath is just his explanation for why they smell, as during the canon run of the week before, he never discovers the truth about the kids' bodies being stuffed inside. Ralph's
That's
not
crazy.
talking about the characters of Freddy,
That's
Bonnie, Chica,
crazy.
and
Wait.
Foxy. He's
Why did I just think about that? Like, never got a bath. The smell of the suits, yeah, they would be fucking gross smelling. Why the? Damn, why didn't I never think about that little detail when I first
talking
Heard
about the
that.
physical animatronics, and that changes everything. Because if these 4 animatronics have to have been around for 20 years, then that means there's only one date FNAF 1 can be.
That's crazy. The
We've
detail
seen
was
that time
right
and
in our
time again,
faces.
Freddy Fazbear's Pizza
all this
was
time.
officially established in
We just never knew.
1983. If the animatronics from FNAF 1 are supposed to be the same animatronics
Some crazy
restored to
dab
their
he was
original
hitting.
vintage designs, then that would mean the earliest FNAF 1 could take place is 2003. But what about the Secret of the Mimic teaser? That showed the franchise was active in 1979. And that's true, but it's not taking into account the era of FNAF that game takes place in. In the books, the Mimic is invented as one of the earliest ever animatronics, designed to mimic the routines of others and wear whatever costumes it needs in order to become that character. This is the costume era of FNAF, not that of fully
Costume
fledged
era.
animatronics. Edwin, the creator of the Mimic in the books, is working on animatronics of the main 4, but they haven't debuted yet. We saw the same thing at Steel Wool's PAX West booth where they showed a sneak peek of the game. On the walls
wow.
was a poster saying Freddy Fazbear's Pizza coming soon.
Oh,
the
shit.
original animatronics have not yet taken center stage. They haven't started singing those silly songs yet, so the 20 years needs to start after they've debuted, once again pointing us to 1983 and therefore 2003. But what about the minimum wage or the paychecks or the references? It's true, earning $120 for 5 nights of 6 hours work is $4 an hour, while minimum wage in 2003 is
AKA
$5
not
and
enough.
53, or 2003 is still way too low. I'm just not convinced Scott thought through the amount all that much. As for the dates, the 12th of
Probably
November
not.
2003 is a Wednesday, and so it doesn't
Bro
line
didn't
up
think
with
it would
FNAF
become
2's
this
pay
big
schedule.
at the
only
time.
explanation
So
I
maybe
could
some
offer is that
details
in the
we-
movie, Mike learns about the job on
Probably just
April 6th,
oversights.
2000, a Thursday, and the next day calls Afton and starts the job on Friday night, making his 5th night and the day he would typically be paid Tuesday. So we can't necessarily guarantee Fazbear is paying on the same day of the week for all of those years. As for all of the references in the week before, well, just because references exist in the 1980s or the trademark was first established in 1998, it doesn't mean that's the only time those things can be mentioned. My dad only references Top Gun, which came out in 1986, despite the fact he
Jeez.
goes to the cinema every other week. References like this can limit the earliest it can take place, but not necessarily how far into the future it goes. If it is 2003, this would mean that FNAF 1 takes place 16 years after the closure of 1987, which, if you're trying to revitalize a franchise, feels like an awfully long time to wait, although we all know the power of nostalgia with older audiences these days. As for the future
Yeah.
parts of the franchise, this is where I'll admit things fall apart a little. FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after the closure of Freddy's, which would then become 2033. That isn't an issue by itself, but based on this poster and the calendar from Security Breach, it's been theorized that Security Breach takes place in 2035. That means that FNAF 3, FNAF 6, Help Wanted, Special Delivery, and Security Breach all have to take place in 2 years. That's a speedrun worthy of a Tetrabit video. Again,
Damn!
that 2035 date has only been theorized about, so there is a chance that, like our initial FNAF 1 date, it's
Ow.
also not correct.
What the
Though I
fuck?
will admit, it is annoying if Henry's message in FNAF 6 that was labeled HRY223 has nothing to do with the year of the recording and is just an arbitrary number. So, what now? We've examined the 3 options it feels like this book is trying to point us towards: 1989, 1998, or 2003. All of them have some pretty decent evidence supporting them, but they also have plenty of weaknesses. So, which one is the definitive true answer? This is where I'm sure many of you are waiting for me to pull out the trump card, the final piece of evidence that will settle this debate and give us an answer that no one was
I'm gonna just
expecting.
say
But the truth is, every time I
1998?
tried
I
to
don't
solve
even
this
know.
paradox, there was always one piece of evidence that just didn't fit. If we agree it's 2003, then the paycheck days don't work, and Henry's message number means nothing. If we agree it's 1998, then the animatronics can't have been around for 20 years. There's just no winning. This book was clearly supposed to give us answers, but a few mistakes or contradictions here and there have made it impossible to do so. And that is so frustrating as a fan of this franchise. We spent the last few years begging for answers to this franchise.
bet you Scott
and
thinks we're
over
just-
the last year,
Scott thinks we're probably just too smart, and he's just like, you know what a few inconsistencies there and a few wrong things here, they'll still solve it.
really felt like Scott was answering our
I don't know.
prayers, clarifying older
Or maybe we're just
details
looking
in
too
the
far into
franchise.
it and the
Bite of
answer's still
87
there.
being revealed to be Foxy in the week before. The Spring Bonnie
It's probably the
aerial
more
on
likely
Midnight
one.
Motorist car in 5 Laps at Freddy's revealed that Cheeto Man from Midnight Motorist was Afton all along. Ditophobia revealed that the FNAF 4 nightmares were a result of hallucinogenic gas, not sound illusion discs. But when you actually stop and look at those now solved mysteries, outside of the immediate question, what did they actually solve? Cheeto Man is Afton, but we still don't know for sure who the kid that escapes is, who the person in the living room is, what the mound is. FNAF 4 is hallucinogenic gas. Okay, cool.
Maybe I mean, it's either gotta be Michael or the crying child, honestly. Whoever escaped.
But the game still plays out the same way. The Bite of 87 was Foxy, but nothing else has developed as a result, other than clearing the name of my beloved Mangle. Even today's mystery, the date of FNAF 1.
Mangle's
what would
still guilty in
knowing
my
that year
eyes.
ultimately change about the story, regardless of whether it's 1998 or 2003.
Like, even if Mangle didn't do the bite, it just looks terrifying and scary.
FNAF 3 still happens next, and it burns down. Then FNAF 6 happens, and it also burns down. Then the Help Wanted VR game is made, and then the Pizzaplex gets built and is taken over by the Mimic. Sure, it is fun to be able to solve these small loose threads, and so to some degree, I'm thankful that Scott is giving them to us, but they're ultimately hollow gestures, as we're still unable to use those to figure out the bigger mysteries. What's the deal with Gregory? What happened to Cassie? Are the books canon? Instead, it kind of feels like we're being played with, given small answers to old questions that don't move the story forward.
Could this be
And even
Scott's
then, they're
biggest
filled with
troll?
so many contradictions that you still can't solve them all anyway. And that just
It's been years since we had
It's one
one.
of the reasons why a large part of this fandom wants the books to be canon. It may not solve everything, but it gives us much more straightforward stories and explanations, something tangible that we can hold on to. And that feels a lot better than the alternative of being left scrambling for details that conflict with each other. We've been left in the dark for so long about so
my
many
God,
things, and
this
in a
maze
time of
edit's
so much
kinda-
uncertainty, we want to be
I don't know why, but this maze edit kind of goes hard. I don't know who had this idea, but I like it. This for real goes hard.
able to go to our favorite franchises and feel secure. But instead, it feels as though we're being messed around more and more. As we get
It's gonna be
close to
me
the
in
end
like
of
40
2024
years
and
thinking about
we've got
Five
a
Nights at
new year
Freddy's.
of FNAF upon us, let's just remember to give each other some slack. Whether you believe it's 1989, 1998, 2003, or you want to stick with the original 1993, at the end of the day, we are all working with a broken system, just trying our best to make sense of it. And Scott, if you happen to be watching this, you've got Secret of the Mimic an interactive novel about Cassie in the Pizzaplex, and another Into the Pit adaptation.
Yeah,
coming. Let there
why?
be
Why
some
another Into the
actual
Pit?
answers that help us understand more.
Why do I
than
need to
just
see
the
that
small
bunny
details.
again? That thing is
And
horrifying.
Please make sure there aren't too many contradictions this time. And if you need volunteers to help double check your lore, I might know a good group of people that would be willing
Nah,
to help.
that's
But
crazy.
hey,
That is crazy. I love
to
seeing
help
the.
double check your lore, I might know a
I
good
love
group of
seeing the
people that would
gang here getting shout outs, bro. Look at Ryan, look at John. Oh my god, look at Ozone, look at Hyper ID. I love the shout outs here. That's great. And Daco, right? I mentioned Daco, who I'm blocking. Who I am blocking with my face. It's crazy.
willing to help out. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch a mystery that
It would be so unfair though if a theorist like was able to test the book, because all they have to do is sit there and make theories around the answer, yet it's still the answer. Oh man. Anyway, yeah. Oh, that was Five Surprise the Missing Key is the Phone Guy. Let me know what you guys think about this theory and what year FNAF 1 could be in, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.